You're listening to another edition of the Wealth Foundation podcast, where we help educate listeners on how to create a solid wealth foundation to build their dreams. And now your hosts.
Well, welcome everyone to our inaugural show about infinite banking and some lesser known financial strategies. Today, we want to answer some of your questions, and one of our co-hosts here is Frank Rydell. He is the founder of Hurricane Financial and an authorized infinite banking concept practitioner. Say hello, Frank.
Hey, Eric. How's it going today?
Doing well. I'm excited about this show. I think a lot of people have been hearing about infinite banking and they're wondering, what is this? How come I've never heard of it? So I think we're doing a great service to people. We're going to start a show and hopefully answer some of those questions. I like to start with why. According to Simon Sinek, he says, what is your why? And after discovering infinite banking, I discovered that basically I've been following the wrong advice from the wrong financial experts. So I really just want to help improve the lives of others based on this banking concept.
Well, Eric, that's very, very true. And that really hits home for me because, I have personally been utilizing the infinite banking strategy myself in my own household for a number of years. And what really brought me into this from let's say a more professional standpoint was I saw so many people in the industry. Now I have an estate planning background, as a certified estate planner. I started looking at what other people were doing in the world of financial planning and life insurance and various other industry related concepts. And a lot of people were talking about infinite banking, but very few people seemed to understand it. And being that I was utilizing infinite banking myself already, I had no misconceptions. I was pretty clear on how it worked. I put in my time to study. Eric, I was really amazed at how many people that I ran into that were just simply trying to sell insurance and packaging it under infinite banking, Mm-hmm. I just thought to myself, wow, what a disservice, Infinite banking to me is a whole lot more than just an insurance vehicle. I would even go as far as to say that infinite banking is when you look at the concept of infinite banking, Eric, what is always amazing to me is that infinite banking is really about everything that happens in your life conceptually, places where your money is flowing away from you and you're losing dollars that you're paying interest to other people. It's about those other areas of your life. The actual policy portion of it is a small part. It's kind of the catalyst in which you run everything through. But I think what I've been hearing in the industry is people really offering it the other way and trying to offer it as some type of miracle insurance product instead of a banking concept that it is what it is.
Yeah, now people always have never heard of this, or a lot of people, and myself included. I was a finance major at a large university, and the whole insurance concept, the whole banking concept was never even discussed. So maybe tell people about how you discovered it, and then I can also share my story as well.
Well, it's interesting. Like a lot of people, somebody handed me a book. I was given a book called The Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Great book. I read it, and I was actually traveling when I got the book. And so I was on my trip, and I started reading it here and there. And I found myself at one point in an airport, finishing up the book, reading it, sitting, waiting for a flight. And I thought, this is pretty interesting. I think I get it. And I really, at that moment in time, Eric, I actually felt like I understood the concept really well. And so sometimes today I see clients that I'll give the book to and they'll say, I think I understand it. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I know exactly where you are because I was there at one time. You're about 80% there. Mm-hmm. And I read it a second time. In that second time through, Eric, it really cleared up for me, and I started connecting some of the pieces that I missed the first time through. I just hadn't realized the first time that I was missing certain things. But once I understood that I had to really look at this conceptually, I will admit, with my background, it was a little hard because, I'm used to numbers. I'm used to, being able to see a clear path and understand that, 2 + 2 is 4 and be able to see how that plays out. So when you start talking about concept and things that you can't really chart out that way, but you have to conceptually understand how you get to that point, that's probably that 20% part that I wasn't getting. And so when I went back and reread it again, it helped. And I'll also say this, Eric, my wife and I had our first infinite banking policy and utilized it. And we had that for probably a year before I would say that I really understood every element of it. So,
yeah, it actually took me a lot longer as well. I think I read it. I started my first policy. I didn't completely understand it. Then I started my second one, and then a lot of the ahas started kicking off. I mean, it was about the same time for me as Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where it's about a change in your mental thought process of understanding the 4 quadrants according to Kiyosaki, but now take Nelson Nash's strategy and applying it to something that you think is boring and using that concept to make it something infinite. That's why it's called infinite banking.
Absolutely. You just hit it right on the head.
Why don't you think people have heard about this infinite banking concept? I mean, is it a conspiracy or why? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I have a few different opinions. I'll try to keep this to something short and maybe going in one direction, but I have a couple different opinions, and I think it really stems around industry-related education. Let's start with that. Most advisors, when you're working in my field in estate planning, or you're working in insurance, or you're working in financial planning, or, and all these fields sort of overlap, what you end up finding out is that there are a lot of product sellers out there, Eric. I don't know, have you personally experienced that yourself with a lot of people in the industry being product sellers?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, what I find is you talk to a financial advisor and they say, oh, well, we have a fund for that and we have a fund for that. And they're all in-house. And what I'm finding is, it doesn't matter if you're in the foreign market fund, they're going to get a commission or they're going to charge a fee that goes to their company. So they have no incentive to show you something outside of their house. That's right.
And that's what I found in every industry that's related to what we do. And it's very fascinating because, as I mentioned earlier, I ran into a lot of insurance type of people who were just simply trying to look at this as a way to market insurance and say, well, traditionally, whole life insurance, for instance, is hard to sell, but if I package it as infinite banking, I've got a much better chance of selling that difficult, boring whole life policy. But then I found people in financial services that were very much product centered. And so I think to answer your question, the shorter answer to this would be, it's a lack of education of how it works. Number one, it is highly competitive financial landscape out there in this world of financial planning, estate planning, insurance, and other things. And so what ends up happening is people sort of revert back to what they do. And most of these advisors or people you run into, so-called experts, are people that work for a company like you just said. And they sell in-house products and in-house services that they earn a commission on. And, look, I'm not begrudging anyone from trying to earn a living, but if you're going to talk about something that's a strategic, holistic type of an approach, you really have to be able to offer that approach and not try to use that as a teaser and then, turn around and sell them something else. But I think that's what you find a lot in there. One of the things that we did, when I mentioned I had been doing this for a number of years, when I had founded my company and we were doing estate planning and working with people in the industry, we wanted to incorporate the infinite banking piece because it's been a life changer for us. It's been something that, for me personally, it's changed my financial landscape personally, from this point going forward. It's been phenomenal what we've ended up doing. And infinite banking's helped me pay off my mortgage. It's helped me do a lot of things internally in our internal finances that's just, given us an entire different direction, redirecting dollars that we used to spend, in mortgage payments and other things back into this system of finance for ourselves. So I went out and made sure that our company was an authorized practitioner. So I went to the Infinite Banking Institute. We went through the training and education, which was a lot more extensive than I probably thought it was going in. But we got the certification. And Eric, when you think about it, you asked such a great question when you said, why haven't so many people heard about this? If you think about it, if you look at all the advisors, financial advisors, estate planners, estate planners, insurance people in North America and even parts of Canada, you'll find there's probably over 1 million. I mean, there are a lot of them. About less than 0.1% are actually authorized practitioners, which means they have taken the time to go through the education. They have taken time to be certified to the point to where an institute has said, this person understands infinite banking well enough to not only know how to talk about it, So it's not about a marketing, but they know how to design it so that the client can get something that they actually wanted in the first place and be able to use it as they go forward. So it's been an interesting road. But that's probably a long answer, but that's really my answer as to why people haven't heard it. Because when you do hear it the first time, you think, "Wow, this sounds too good to be true," and how come I haven't heard about this? There's many, many reasons, and it really starts with the lack of education out there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I went through a fury of reading, and that's essentially how I stumbled upon becoming your own banker. There was something about, I believe the term was a burning desire, which I believe all started with Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And this burning desire kept popping up in all these books I was reading. And when I discovered and I fully understood, which I'm still learning every time I read and hear about infinite banking. And I mean, I started off as a client, became fascinated with the concept, realized how powerful it was, to the point where I decided I wanted to become, an authorized agent, and I'm working my way through the practitioner program, getting signed up for that. But basically, there's a lot of people, like you're saying, that are selling a product and they're looking for a commission. But I think there's the purists and the people who design these policies properly to really make a true impact on people's lives. I mean, when people ask me what is infinite banking, well, I can go down multiple rabbit holes and talk about the Fed, talk about, inflation, talk about fractional reserve banking. There's so many things, but basically, I feel like it's my contribution to help people and to help society and help the economy. And these are some of the topics we're going to talk about going on in this show. There's a lot of aspects to infinite banking. We're going to kind of tell you about how it works, maybe how it works for your different life stages. And along this entire journey, we definitely want to answer your questions.
I'd like to add one other thing, Eric. We have a minute, and that is, in going back to this last portion of what we were talking about, we talk about the number of companies out there. There are certain recognition factors and things that you have to have in a properly designed infinite banking structure in order for that policy to work for the banking purposes. And in all my years of experience, I have absolutely worked with so many people. I mean, I have clients all over the country from coast to coast. And in working with people over, more than a decade and doing this particular strategy, what I've found is that I've only run up on 5 carriers out of all the carriers out there, about 5 carriers that have the type of policies on their books that would even work for this. So, that old saying about the needle in a haystack, you picture a haystack and with a needle in it now, you kind of understand why people haven't heard of it, because it's like the needle in the haystack. You're talking about maybe 5 companies, and it could be 1 or 2 more, but I mean, you certainly don't have a lot of them out there who do this. And then if you take let's say those 5 companies, and you look at all the different products and services that they offer internally, there's usually only 1 product, sometimes 2 on their shelf that will actually work if you design it right for one of these type of policies. So the haystack gets bigger at that point. Well, so I always tell people there's a few things you need. You need the right company with the right type of recognition factor to be able to design this policy right. You need the right type of policy. Just can't be any old policy that company offers. And it has to be designed right. You also need an agent who's an authorized practitioner who understands not just how to design it and walk you through the steps of getting the policy, but that person has to be there and be your point person as you go forward, Eric, because it's so important. I tell people all the time, that the haystack is getting really big at this point, because you really got to have all those pieces in place. That last piece is critical, because having that person that they can call you down the road, or you can call that person and ask them, how do I best utilize this policy to my advantage? Because I have a life stage change in my finances and I need to access money from that policy, or I need to utilize that policy for growth and do something else with the money. How do I do that and have it work to my advantage? Well, that's where the authorized practitioner comes in. So again, you have to have the right company, the right kind of policy, the right design, the right agent to help you. And those things are hard to find, that combination. So that's really where I would wind up on this and just say that that's probably another major reason why people haven't heard about the concept.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Frank, and definitely appreciate all your help. You've assisted with what I'm trying to do, and I think I actually discovered you from a Google search where I went online and said, okay, how can I combine the infinite banking concept with real estate investment? Again, going back to that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and alternative thinking. And it's like, all right, let's get creative of what can we do? Now, that may not be where some people are. Some people have debt and they want to pay that off. And we're going to talk about things like opportunity cost and some of the mistakes that I made. And, my story and my motivation to share this concept with everyone is the fact that I went back and I crunched my numbers and realized, had I been using this concept instead of what Dave and Susie told me to do, I would have a guaranteed $1 million at retirement, which I no longer have, which is my mission now to help educate other people. And if anyone has questions or comments along the way, just call the number on the screen or go to one of our websites, and we'd be happy to answer those questions going forward as we continue this series.
It's great talking with you today, Eric. Always love talking about infinite banking. Thank you for the time.
My pleasure, Frank. I appreciate all your expertise. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we look forward to next week as we dive deeper into the infinite banking concept and other financial strategies. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Foundation podcast. The contents of this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only and not to be viewed as advice. Results may vary, and listeners are encouraged to seek professional financial advice. To learn more or to submit a question, please visit www.thewealthfoundation.org or call 844-OWN-BANK. That's 844-696-2265. Find us on your favorite social media by searching for #The Wealth Foundation.